Da 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 da. Die, 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 die. Did you see those wisps of cirrus clouds in the blue, blue sky? Oh, she was exceptionally beautiful today. Just let's take a moment and breathe her in. That is what freedom is.
Oh, thank you for that invitation to connect with the heavens. Oh, Bird, I'm so glad to introduce you to Cedar in the flesh after months of communicating only through emails and webinars.
Oh,
so good.
Cedar, I am so happy to finally meet you so I could thank you in person and the crew at Jewish Voice for Peace for the exceptional work you guys have been doing organizing these Palestine solidarity events.
Yeah, it's so good to connect in real life. I've definitely felt isolated for speaking out against the genocide. Hugs are just what we need in this heartbreaking time. It is strange, though, right? We barely know each other.
And yet, we do know one of the most important things you can know about a person, don't you think?
Yes, our hearts share many values, the same seeds.
Oh, seeds. I love the way Vivian Sansour talks about seeds. The Palestinian heirloom seed library she founded isn't just about preserving seeds. She calls it a journey of reclaiming our imagination. Every seed we plant, she says, is planting hope and intention for the future.
What an inspiring thought that our seeds, our poems, our acts of imagination plant intention for a future. Miriam, these gatherings, the full peace birds, are such a gift to our community. Since October, when I started following Palestinian reporters and artists on Instagram, horrific images fill my screen and tear me up every day, every moment. Yet I can't look away. You?
Yeah, same. I have to keep bringing myself back to community, which is complicated. Community is as complicated as identity.
I've been learning more and more how complicated the community is. Miriam suggested we visit faith communities to learn about the religious diversity of Palestinians. There's so much texture and surprising connections. I didn't know that Fridays are special for Muslims as well. In my Jewish faith, there's sacred time, Shabbat, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Isn't it interesting how this sacredness overlaps on Friday evening?
Yeah, like Sundays for people of Christian faith.
Oh, I could do a whole thing about capitalism and Christianity defining the weekend. You know me, I'm much more comfortable with lecturing on that research than feeling the feels. But for now, suffice it to say, Fridays are sacred for all of our peoples.
I really appreciate that, Cedar. I would like to learn more about Shabbats, experience Shabbats. I'm definitely a learn by doing kind of person.
And I'd like to learn more about religious diversity in Palestine. Miriam, I'm remembering, you're Christian, aren't you?
Well, I was raised Christian, but wandered into a different spiritual path. But as a kid, I noticed we celebrated Easter on a different date than other Christians. And Christmas at home was so different than my friends who had big Christmas trees and got extravagant gifts. In our home, we fasted for more than a month, 40 days before Easter, which had nothing to do with bunnies, probably more like Ramadan. So, Cedar, tell us about Shabbat.
Shabbat is about rest. Rest is about peace. Whew. Big feelings coming up. I want to share with you, but it feels vulnerable as I wrestle with my identity. Not just my relationship with Judaism, but my relationship to showing my Jewishness to other people. Right now, with all the media hype, I feel constantly questioned. How do I hold my desperate assertion that Zionism is not Judaism?
I get it, Cedar. Our identities get pigeonholed into categories all the time. We're taught in school to think in categories, to fit in boxes. As a kid learning martial arts, I didn't understand that these traditions integrated spiritual wisdom, healing medicine, and military strategies.
I just watched America Ferrera's TEDx talk called My Identity is a Superpower, Not an Obstacle. Have you seen it?
Oh, yes, I have. The year it came out, my auntie played it for all the cousins. She was trying to show us that our identity is something to be embraced, something to be valued, and that we have a responsibility to resist the demand of the dominant society to shrink and assimilate. I wonder about your experience of identity, Miriam. I mean, those students in Vermont, their identities got them shot.
So horrible. Identity is complex for me, for sure. Painful. For my family, I was raised to hide my identity. You know, I was named after a famous Palestinian activist, Muhammad Yusuf Farhat Maryam, also known as the Mother of Martyrs. But when I started kindergarten, my parents anglicized my name to Miriam. I got the message, loud and clear, to never say we are Palestinian or even Arab. My parents' terror taught me to suppress who I am. I was not allowed to claim Palestinians as my people. So I felt like I had no people. I belonged to no people. Didn't belong anywhere.
My parents passed on their terror to me too. They survived a horrific massacre, but never talked about it until recently when they came to live with me. When I started kindergarten, my parents gave me an English name they got out of a name book, and it stuck all through high school. I became the name my teachers called me, Dolly.
Wow. You're definitely not a dolly. Tell us about when you reclaimed your identity.
It wasn't until I was in my 30s. In grad school, I studied Middle Eastern history and started to learn what really happened in the first Nakba, what my parents lived through, and how they were expelled from their homeland. It's sad that I had to learn my own family history and classes. But even then, it was kind of abstract. Now we're all witnessing the atrocities brazenly broadcast, and it's all too real. I'm learning so much from my cousins about what happened to my parents, who they were, who I am. Where did your name, Bird, come from?
I gave it to myself. I love birds. I love being in the clouds. I love flying. Bird is my joy, my identity.
Palestine, A to Z, by Mosab Abu Toha, in Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear. Poems from Gaza, 2022.
An apple that fell from the table on a dark evening when man-made lightning flashed through the window, the kitchen, the street, the sky, rattling the cupboards and breaking the dishes.
Am is the linking verb that follows I in the present tense when I am no longer present, when I am shattered. B, a book that doesn't mention my language or my country and has maps of every other place except for my birthplace, as if I were an illegitimate child on Mother Earth.
Thank you, Madam
President and distinguished members of the court. It is an honor for me to stand here in front of you on behalf of the Republic of South Africa on this exceptional case, in extending our hands across the miles to the people of Palestine. We do so in the full knowledge that we are a part of a humanity that is one. These are the words of our founding president, Nelson Mandela. The violence and destruction of Palestine and Israel did not begin on 7th October 2023. The Palestinians have experienced systematic oppression and violence for the last 76 years. On 6th October 2023 and every day since 7th October 2023. Given that continuing effective control by Israel over the territory of Gaza, Gaza is still considered by international community to be under belligerent oppression by Israel.
Write My Name by Zaina Azam. CNN, October 2023. Some parents in Gaza have resorted to writing their children's names on their legs to help identify them should either they or the children be killed. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Use the black permanent marker with the ink that doesn't bleed if it gets wet. The one that doesn't melt if it's exposed to heat. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Make the lines thick and clear. Add your special flourishes so I can take comfort in seeing my mama's handwriting when I go to sleep.
I am so grateful to be here with you this evening. Mariam, do you remember last week after the art action, as we were walking to our cars, you said you'd sunk to a very dark place? That's how I've been feeling this week. It's why I couldn't make it to the town council meeting last night. Most days I wake up and I just can't make myself get out from under the covers.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm out there at the standouts, but whew, it's a struggle to sustain any hope that things will change.
This endless stream of images of maimed and murdered children, really, I just don't have words. It's unbearable.
And yet somehow we bear it, don't we? We continue to bear the unbearable, the emotional, ethical, existential weight.
Yeah, right? I try to make myself do the daily calls to legislators, organize die-ins, and go to town council meetings, fold the peace bird, but I can't always show up either, Bird. I can't shake this feeling of dread that maybe none of it will make any difference. Over 100 days, hundreds of days of bombardment, and nothing changes.
Oh, Cedar, I can only offer a few words, not of comfort. Because I think we've all been too comfortable in this crazy world. So, words of compassion and discomfort. I see you struggling with what whiteness demands, doing the things, showing up, being visible as an ally or accomplice. Yeah, we need to show up as a collective in protest. And we also need to tend to what's going on inside. The things inside of you is connected to that which is outside of you.
South Africa
Unequivocally condemns the targeting of civilians by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups and the taking of hostages on 7th October 2023. That said, no armed attack on a state's territory, no matter how serious, even an attack involving atrocity crimes, can provide any justification for or deference to breaches of the convention, whether as a matter of law or morality. Israel's response to the 7th October 2023 attack has crossed this line and gives rise to the breaches of the convention. Faced with such evidence and our duty to do what we can do to prevent genocide, as contained in Article 1 of the convention, the South African government initiated this case. I invoke the words of Martin Luther King when he said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, always bending towards justice."
Did you hear the story of Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old girl whose family was fleeing their neighborhood in Gaza City? Her cousin was on the phone with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society when machine guns fired at their car. Can you imagine? Tiny Hind surrounded by her dead family while she waited for 3 hours to be rescued? Her cries for help, unbearable to hear.
No child should have to experience such terror. No person.
South Africa's case will be presented by a team of 6 legal counselors comprising of Dr. Adila Hassim, Mr. Tembeke Intukatobi, Professor John Dugat, Ms. Blaine Nigrale, Mr. Max De Police, and Professor Vohan Loh.
Oh my God. Listen, the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor just published this report. Hind Rajab and her relatives were killed in a planned execution carried out by the Israeli army in Gaza City in broad daylight. Field investigation revealed that there appeared to be remnants of Israeli army tanks on the road leading to the vehicle, and Israeli army military vehicles were 200 meters from the car's site.
Chilling words of planned execution. She was only a little girl, and her cousin barely a teenager. Think about the children in our lives, our nieces, our nephews, our cousins, our own children.
The ambulance that had been dispatched to save Hind, its engine lying on the ground, was completely burned. Why would they need to kill this child who'd survived such a horror and then murder the medics who tried to save her, who coordinated with the Israeli army? Incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible.
The Israeli army targeted the PRCS ambulance with a US-made shell, as evidenced by pieces of an American-made M830A1 heat shell discovered inside. It's crushing. I'm sick to my stomach. These Israeli army shells and tanks are funded by us, the United States of America. I feel responsible. This brutal massacre happening in my name with me and all diasporic Jews as justification. I said this to my booby and she called me a self-hating Jew. I don't know how to explain that if being Jewish has given me anything, it is a valuing of life. How can we experience this moment in time so differently? To me, there's nothing more Jewish than stopping these murders. And to her, there's nothing more Jewish than protecting the murderous regime.
Ouch. That sure brings up my own family stuff.
Thank you. Madam President, distinguished members of the court,
It is a privilege to appear on behalf of the Republic of South Africa in this case of exceptional importance. It is a case that underscores the very essence of our shared humanity as expressed in the preamble to the Genocide Convention. South Africa contends that Israel has transgressed Article 2 of the Convention by committing actions that fall within the definition of genocide. The actions show a systematic pattern of conduct from which genocide can be inferred. Allow me to place these acts in context. Gaza is a narrow strip of approximately 365 square kilometers, as depicted in the map now displayed. Entry and exit by air and sea to Gaza is prohibited, with Israel operating the only 2 crossing points. Gaza, which is one of the most densely populated places in the world, is home to approximately 2.3 million Palestinians, almost half of them children.
I'm so caught in this twisty place at the crosshairs of the conflict between our people. People with a capital P. Your Bubby. My cousins who lived for generations in Palestine and now losing their homes, their lives. The children.
Madam President, members of the court, there is an urgent
need for provisional measures to protect Palestinians in Gaza from the irreparable prejudice caused by Israel's violations of the Genocide Convention. The United Nations Secretary General and its chiefs described the situation in Gaza variously as a crisis of humanity, a living hell, a bloodbath, a situation of utter deepening and unmatched horror on a massive scale. Entire multi-generational families will be obliterated, and yet more Palestinian children will become WCNSF. Wounded child, no surviving family. The terrible new acronym born out of Israel's genocidal assault on the Palestinian population in Gaza. There is an urgent need for provisional measures to prevent imminent, irreparable prejudice to the rights in issue in this case. There could not be a clearer or more compelling case. In the words of the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, there must be an end to the decimation of Gaza and of its people.
What world is this where there's an acronym for children who have lost everything, their entire family, their whole world? Wounded child, no surviving family? I refuse the acronym. I need to say the whole thing. Wounded child, no surviving family. I want to scream that at the top of my lungs. This is how you all in the US of A tell us, Palestinians, every day that you do not even see my people as people.
I will address Israel's genocidal intent.
A famous singer repeated Mr. Netanyahu's Amalek reference, stating that Gaza must be wiped out and be destroyed with every Amalek seed. We simply must destroy all of Gaza and exterminate everyone who is there. Another has called to erase Gaza, not leave a single person there. Journalists and commentators have announced that the woman is the enemy, the baby is an enemy, the pregnant woman is an enemy. That is necessary to turn the strip into a slaughterhouse, to demolish every house our soldiers come across, exterminate everyone.
Beloved poet, teacher, activist Rafat Al-Arir was killed on December 6, 2023. Euromed Human Rights Monitor reported the apartment where Rafat and his family were sheltering was surgically bombed out of the entire building where it's located. If I Must Die by Rafat Al-Arir.
If I must die, you must live. To tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings.
Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite, you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love.
If I must die, let it bring hope Let it be a story.
Holy Week is coming up in the tradition that my family practiced. I'm no longer a practicing Christian, which is closer to Greek Orthodox, but some aspects of the tradition still resonate for me. Fasting is still significant. Specifically, the teaching that it's not about deprivation, but a path towards spiritual growth. It feels especially significant to practice now, while millions of Palestinians suffer starvation under the Israeli policies upholding apartheid.
That resonates with why we fast on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year. Some say it's to be purified before God or to mark a cleansing of the last year. To me, it's about forgiveness, but it's much more than asking forgiveness from my coworker who was a jerk one time, so I was a jerk back. It's about a bigger responsibility to atone for harm I might have caused in the world, and choosing to abstain from food, drink, and sex is choosing to be accountable to the person I want to be.
Cedar, Bird, I invite you here on Holy Saturday to break the fast intentionally, to think together about how we can honor our relationship with the divine or creator, however you experience that relationship to the spirit greater than us. May it be a day to instruct us in grace for all our faltering and imperfect attempts to show up. Grace for not showing up to every town council meeting or protest or march. Grace for showing up when and where we can.
Yes. May we grant ourselves grace and rest so that we may show up as our fullest selves when and where we are able.
For the past 96 days, Israel has subjected Gaza
to what has been described as one of the heaviest conventional bombing campaigns in the history of modern warfare. Palestinians in Gaza are being killed by Israeli weaponry and bombs from air, land, and sea. They are also at immediate risk of death by starvation, dehydration, and disease as a result of the ongoing siege by Israel. The destruction of Palestinian homes, the insufficient aid being allowed through to the Palestinian population, and the impossibility of distributing this limited aid while bombs fall. This conduct renders essentials to life unobtainable. Against this background, I move now to demonstrate in turn how Israel's conduct violates Articles 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D of the Convention.
I do still want to know all about the meeting I missed. Tell me everything.
Yes, Miriam, where to start?
Yeah, what a roller coaster.
Okay, a few weeks ago, I was certain the resolution was not going to pass.
Yeah, there were only a handful of the counselors in full support.
I would have given up, but our team really rallied. We gained the support of businesses and orgs and won over the majority of counselors, one by one.
Then this guy who put a wrench in everything.
Is that the same guy you said kept falling asleep in the meeting?
Yes, so disrespectful, so offensive.
So there were almost 4 hours of public comment. Beautiful, moving testimonies by people representing the full spectrum of diversity in our town.
Then the counselors who co-sponsored the resolution offered some amendments that took care of concerns raised by other counselors. There was this moment, a kind of high, when we all thought we were heading for the home stretch, counting 7 solid yeses.
Then this dude introduces his own whereas. So the three whereases on our resolution were, whereas on October 16th, 2023, the Town Council gave unanimous support to a resolution condemning the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. And whereas since October 7th, 2023, the Israeli government's siege of Gaza has killed more than 27,500 Palestinians, most of them civilians, nearly half of them children. And whereas more than 1.9 million residents of Gaza have been forced to leave their homes, many of them displaced multiple times.
He wanted his proposed whereas text to be added before that third clause. Whereas fighting continues on both sides with Hamas firing rockets into Israel, Israel attacking Hamas, and non-combatant citizens of Gaza and Israel displaced from their homes, injured, and killed.
He was making a kind of equivalency between the violence of the IDF, the most highly resourced military in the world, and the Palestinian resistance. So painful to hear. I was indignant.
And so painful to witness the collective wisdom of our community get sidelined by one dude. He didn't see this incredible team working together for months, collectively crafting this resolution, coming together across our differences. He didn't know some of us were going out into the community, talking with counselors and business owners one at a time to try to understand each other. No mainstream journalist is telling that story.
No. But there are people, poets and storytellers, telling that story. The story of people facing up to each other, up close and personal. He reminds me of the character in Solmaz Sharif's poem. Whereas, well, if I were from your culture living in this country, said the man outside the 2004 Republican National Convention, I would put up with that for this country. Whereas I felt the need to clarify. You would put up with torture, you mean? And he proclaimed, yes.
Solma says she asked the man, would you put up with the torture, rape, dismemberment, imprisonment of bodies like mine? And he said, yes.
It's devastating that a human being could regard another with such hatred. I feel like I can't go on writing, getting on with life as normal. Nothing's normal. I can't squeeze another drop of love out of this bloody horror.
Whereas it could take as long as 16 seconds between the trigger pulled in Las Vegas and the Hellfire missile landing in Mazar al-Sharif, after which they will ask, did we hit a child? No, a dog. They will answer themselves. Whereas the lover made my heat rise so that if heat sensors were trained on me, they could read my thermal shadow through the roof and through the wardrobe. Whereas a dog, they will say. Now, therefore, let it matter what we call a thing.
Madam President,
distinguished members of the court, it is an honor to appear for you again on behalf of the State of Israel. The State of Israel is singularly aware of why the Genocide Convention, which has been invoked in these proceedings, was adopted. Seared into our collective memories is the systemic murder of 6 million Jews as part of a premeditated and heinous program for their total annihilation. Given the Jewish people's history and its foundational texts, it is not surprising that Israel was among the first states to ratify the Genocide Convention without reservation and to incorporate its provisions into the domestic legislation. For some, the promise of never again for all peoples is a slogan. For Israel, it is the highest moral obligation.
I've been selecting poems to read at the Palestine Solidarity event and learning about this powerful dialogue unfolding between Palestinian and Israeli poets. Palestinian poets are incorporating in their poems Hebrew words learned in prison, and some Israeli poets are expressing nuances in their relationship to this conflict. Like this example, Israeli poet and peace activist Dan Almagor wrote In My Shoes, a poem about Walid, who works in his local grocery store.
For some people, a Palestinian is Yasser Arafat, a youth throwing a Molotov cocktail at a bus, a boy hurling taunts at soldiers and cursing their mothers. When you say Palestinian to me, I think of Walid, the only Palestinian I know and who knows me. How strange to think that someone somewhere in Walid's village near Nablus is wearing my shoes now. Once, not so very long ago, I was in his shoes.
The first genocidal act committed by Israel
is the mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza in violation of Article 2A of the Genocide Convention. As the UN Secretary General explained 5 weeks ago, the level of Israel's killing is so extensive that nowhere is safe in Gaza. As I stand before you today, 23,210 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces during the sustained attacks over the last 3 months. At least 70% of whom are believed to be women and children. Some 7,000 Palestinians are still missing, presumed dead under the rubble. The level of killing is so extensive that those whose bodies are found are buried in mass graves, often unidentified. In the first 3 weeks alone following 7 October, Israel deployed 6,000 bombs per week. At least 200 times it has deployed 2,000-pound bombs in southern areas of Palestine designated as safe. These bombs have also decimated the north, including refugee camps. 2,000-pound bombs are some of the biggest and most destructive bombs available. They are dropped by lethal fighter jets that are used to strike targets on the ground by one of the world's most resourced armies. Israel has killed an unparalleled and unprecedented number of civilians, with the full knowledge of how many civilian lives each bomb will take. More than 1,800 Palestinian families in Gaza have lost multiple family members, and hundreds of multi-generational families have been wiped out, with no remaining survivors. Mothers, fathers, children, siblings, grandparents, aunts, cousins, often all killed together.
Miriam and Bird step off the stage, each with a bowl, one full of seeds, the other full of soil. They each take a few seeds and plant them in the soil, then walk around the audience offering seeds for people to plant.
This killing is nothing short of destruction of Palestinian life. It is inflicted deliberately. No one is spared, not even newborn babies. The scale of Palestinian child killings in Gaza is such that United Nations chiefs have described it as a graveyard for children. The devastation, we submit, is intended to and has laid waste to Gaza beyond any acceptable legal, let alone humane justification. The second genocidal act, identified in South Africa's application, is Israel's infliction of serious bodily or mental harm to Palestinians in Gaza in violation of Article 2B of the Genocide Convention. Israel's attacks have left close to 60,000 Palestinians wounded and maimed. Again, the majority of them women and children. This in circumstances where the healthcare system has all but collapsed. Large numbers of Palestinian civilians, including children, are arrested, blindfolded, forced to undress, and loaded onto trucks, taken to unknown locations. The suffering of the Palestinian people, physical and mental, is undeniable.
When the sun goes down, we light the candles. And then, just before we sing the prayer, the matriarch welcomes the light of Shabbat into her eyes 3 times like this. Our fight for peace needs all of us to be connected to that matriarchal healing energy inside ourselves.
Turning to the third genocidal act, under Article 2C, Israel has deliberately imposed conditions on Gaza that cannot sustain life and are calculated to bring about its physical destruction. First, Israel has now damaged or destroyed an estimated 355,000 Palestinian homes, leaving at least 500,000 Palestinians with no home to return to. The Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights of Internationally Displaced Persons explains that houses and infrastructures have been razed to the ground, frustrating any realistic prospects for displaced Gazans to return home, repeating a long history of mass forced displacement of Palestinians by Israel. The destruction is celebrated by the Israeli army. Soldiers film themselves joyfully detonating entire apartment blocks and town squares, erecting the Israeli flag over the wreckage, seeking to re-establish Israeli settlements on the rubble of Palestinian homes, and thus extinguishing the very basis of Palestinian life in Gaza. Second, together with the forced displacement, Israel's conduct has been deliberately calculated to cause widespread hunger, dehydration, and starvation. Israel's campaign has pushed Gazans to the brink of famine. An unprecedented 93% of the population in Gaza is facing crisis levels of hunger. All of the people in the world currently suffering catastrophic hunger, more than 80% are in Gaza.
In the midst of the flood of images, crumbled buildings, and lifeless bodies, one day my feed presented me with this image of life. miracle in rubble. 3 long, slender leaves sprout through chalky, curled fingers. Death caresses life. Date seed cradle in palm of lifeless hand, unmarred flesh of a martyr. Life sprouts from lifeless flesh, everyday miracle, inextirpable.
Vivian Sansour shines a ray of hope with the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library. This poem honors her work. They Kept Us Alive by JuPong Lin. She cradles a yakteen gourd to her belly as if holding a baby close to her heart. She gathers and shares seeds that nourish her people, their land, the things that we love that have kept us alive for thousands and thousands of years. Seeds of plants driven to the brink of extinction. Jadui watermelon that grew in Jenin. White cucumber grown in Batar and Wadi Fukin. Jazal Amar that her mother doused in tangy tamarind. She gathers and shares fugitive seeds that have refused to succumb to airstrikes, settler fires, water deprivation. Trees burning in forest fires send signals. Drop your seeds! One seed at a time. I recovered another story. Discovered part of my heritage, dismissed and brutalized. Seeds gathered and shared with local farmers germinate, pollinate, transform, live their own stories. These tiny beings saved her. She refuses to track the seeds. No numbers, dates, labels, no. They don't belong to me. They belong to themselves. I wanted these seeds to stay free. The Living Archive is not just for Palestine, but also for the world. A world in a hospice state. The Seed Library isn't just about seeds. It's a journey of reclaiming our imagination for a Palestine truly free that breaks the cycles of histories.
The 4th genocidal act under Article 2B is Israel's military assault on Gaza's healthcare system, which renders life unsustainable. Those wounded by Israel in Gaza are being deprived of life-saving medical care. Gaza's healthcare system, already crippled by years of blockade and prior attacks by Israel, is unable to cope with the sheer scale of the injuries. Finally, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls has pointed to acts committed by Israel that would fall under the 4th category of genocidal acts in Article 2D of the Convention. On 22 November, she expressly warned the following: the reproductive violence inflicted by Israel on Palestinian women, newborn babies, infants, and children could be qualified as acts of genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, including imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group.
Journalist Isan Auda posted on March 15, 2024, yesterday 200 men went hungry on the 5th day of Ramadan to grab some flour to break the fast, and they did not make it back to their children. They went hungry and died hungry, and they were killed by the Israeli army. Israel committed the first flour massacre, killed them on Ramadan. Their bags of flour are covered in blood.
This is a Body by Lisa Suhair Majaj. This is a body, body of flesh, body of bone, body of spirit, body of light, body of longing, body of dreams, body of bodies. This is a body.
A body with a chest broken open, body with a skull broken open, body with a spirit broken open, body without a body. This is a body, body of wonder, body of hope, body of oceans, body of harbors.
This is a body in flesh like yours. This is a body broken like mine. See how we stutter through rubble, wounded, till we fall. This is a body of words, a body of history, a body of knowledge. This is a body of fact and a body of lies.
Here are the bodies, sprawled in the street like puppets. The bodies dangling in frantic peril from ravaged roofs. Here are the bodies seized, the bodies fleeing, the bodies that stay alive, with eyes that burn, limbs torn off. The bodies in which we die. This is a vessel of flesh, a shipwrecked hull. Here is the gasping breath, the vanishing shore. Here are the ones that drowned.
All right, now I'm in it, drenched in the luscious language of poetry, grief, and imagination. I know in my body that our actions, however small, make a difference. We are, each one of us, making a drop in a big movement, a tidal wave.
Scene 5.
We live at a time
when words are cheap. In an age of social media and identity politics, the temptation to reach for the most outrageous term, to vilify and demonize, has become for many irresistible. But if there is a place where words should still matter, where truth should still matter, it is surely a court of law. The applicant has regrettably put before the court a profoundly distorted factual and legal picture. The entirety of its case hinges on a deliberately curated, decontextualized, and manipulative description of the reality of current hostilities.
Have you two heard of a Planthropocene?
But what? That's a mouthful.
Is that a play on the Anthropocene? It's how some geologists identify our current geologic epoch, right? An epoch where when humans' impact on the planet is so substantial, they want to name a geologic epoch after ourselves.
Yes, that's exactly it. Indigenous scholars like Zoe Todd says there's a kind of arrogance in a worldview that puts humans at the center of the universe.
Humans murdering each other relentlessly.
Dooming the planet to irreversible climate change.
Yeah, that's apocalyptic thinking. So the Planthropocene was dreamt up by Natasha Myers, this professor of anthropology who's also an artist. She argues that instead of taking up dream time on the apocalypse, we should be dreaming livable worlds. If we shift our focus to the human-plant relationship, human-plant solidarity, can we dream a livable future, even in a time of multiple genocides? This was written in the fall after a season of devastating floods in Massachusetts. It was also in the midst of conflict in the Middle East that few of us in the United States foresaw would lead to the travesty unfolding in Gaza. Scuffling Towards Repair by JuPong.
If we can all dream this future together,
can we come together as one people in our deepest desire to cherish and tend our earth, our heartlands?
Western Mass News, July 2023. Massive amounts of water drowned hundreds of acres of rich farmland. Dead in the water.
From Boston 25 News, August 2023. Epic floods, diseases spread through moisture droplets, fungal diseases spread through spores. Farmers that didn't flood this year dying a slow death.
We hustled to visit the food bank farm. Clump on wooden walkways edged by unfamiliar sedges and familiar ferns. Wetland moss that glows a miraculous green through gray winter months.
We hustle to meet the farm at the edge of the forest that feeds more than 100,000 people, driving a crack into food apartheid.
We glimpse 2 rounded backs, bodies bent over, tenderly tending the land. The straw hat waves. We swap no-till growing tips. He favors a scuffle hoe that cuts weeds before seeds explore, helping soil to repair itself.
I go get a scuffle hoe, hopeful this tool is the answer to dreams of a 3-sister garden. Imagining a parade of low-till gardeners laying cardboard blankets over wormy beds, scuffling towards the Planthropocene, a future where big-headed, 2-legged bend towards plant nation's sensible wisdom.
Israel's military attack is being conducted,
Systematic
which
in
has been
its character and form. The mass displacement of population of Gaza herded into areas where they continue to be killed, and the deliberate creation of conditions that lead to a slow death.
Rituals with bread and wine nurture the Planthropocene, right?
Yeah, and when we express gratitude for the grapes, the grains, the olives, water, we honor our relationships with plants and with the land.
Our rituals express gratitude. We raise our glass and say, L'chaim, to life. L'chaim.
There is an extraordinary feature in this case, that Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent. And these statements are then repeated by soldiers on the ground in Gaza as they engage in the destruction of Palestinians and the physical infrastructure of Gaza.
Medicine shortages and the lack of medical care.
Clean water and electricity are so great that large numbers of Palestinians are dying or are at imminent risk of dying. Preventable deaths, cancer, and other services have long shut down. Women are undergoing cesarean sections without anesthetic. In barely functioning hospitals described as scenes from a horror movie. With many undergoing otherwise unnecessary hysterectomies in an attempt to save their lives. Each day, over 10 Palestinian children will have one or both legs amputated, many without anesthetic. Each day on current rates, an average of 3,900 Palestinian homes will be damaged or destroyed. More mass graves will be dug. More cemeteries will be bulldozed and bombed, and corpses violently exhumed, denying even the dead any dignity or peace. Each day, ambulances, hospitals, and medics will continue to be attacked and killed. The first responders who have spent 3 months without international assistance trying to dig families out of the rubble with their bare hands will continue to be targeted.
In Arabic, Allah yibarakun. May God bless all of you. My pronunciation is probably off. I'm just learning Arabic.
Allah yibarakun.
As United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs stated last Friday, Gaza has become a place of death and despair. Families are sleeping in the open as temperatures plummet. Areas where civilians were told to relocate for their safety have been under bombardment. Medical facilities are under relentless attack. The few hospitals that are partially functional are overwhelmed with trauma cases, critically short of all supplies and inundated by desperate people seeking safety. A public health disaster is unfolding. Infectious diseases are spreading in overcrowded shelters as sewers spill over. Some 180 Palestinian women are giving birth daily amidst the chaos. People are facing the highest levels of food insecurity ever recorded. Famine is around the corner. For children in particular, the past 12 weeks have been traumatic. No food, no water, no school, nothing but the terrifying sounds of war, day in and day out. Gaza has simply become uninhabitable. Its people are witnessing daily threats to their very existence while the world watches on.
As you know, I love learning about religious diversity. In Dominica, some devout Christians say, "God bless you," in Dominican Creole. Would you like to learn?
Sure.
It's pronounced Borde Benu. Borde Benu. God bless you.
South Africa's case is that those acts and omissions are genocidal in character, as they are committed with the requisite specific intent, dolus specialis, to destroy Palestinians in Gaza as a part of the broader Palestinian national, racial, and ethnical group. The acts are all attributable to Israel, which has failed to prevent genocide and is committing genocide in manifest violation of the Genocide Convention, and which has also violated and is continuing to violate its other fundamental obligations under the Genocide Convention, including by failing to prevent or punish the direct and public incitement to genocide by senior Israeli officials and others.
March 30th is Land Day. We commemorate the killing of 6 Palestinians in 1976 who were protesting the Israeli theft of thousands of acres of Palestinian land. The Second Olive Tree by Mahmoud Darwish, translated by Marilyn Hacker. The olive tree does not weep and does not laugh.
She lives as a friendly sister of eternity, neighbor of time, that helps her stock her luminous oil and forget the invaders' names except the Romans, who coexisted with her and borrowed some of her branches.
To weave wreaths. They did not treat her as a prisoner of war, but these soldiers, these modern soldiers, besiege her with bulldozers and uproot her from her lineage of earth. One of her grandsons,
who witnessed the execution threw a stone at a soldier, and he was martyred with her. We buried him there in that deep
pit, the grandmother's cradle. And that is why we were sure that he would become, in a little while, an olive tree, a thorny olive tree, and green.
Scene 6.
South Africa is acutely aware of the particular weight of responsibility in initiating proceedings against Israel for violations of the Genocide Convention. However, South Africa is also acutely aware of its own obligation as a state party to the Genocide Convention to prevent genocide.
Pantun for Peace by JuPong. written while genocide made poetry seem impossible. Fields that fed thousands rest in full moon's glare. Farmers here die slower deaths by waterborne disease. There, children die in rubble, bombs bursting in air, wrench a poem out of grief that brings us to our knees.
Farmers here die slower deaths by waterborne disease in the wake of deadly floods and storms extreme. Wrench a poem out of grief that brings us to our knees. Can our nightmares birth seeds of hope, a peaceful dream?
United Nations experts have also repeatedly sounded the alarm for over 10 weeks that, considering statements made by Israeli political leaders and their allies, accompanied by military action in Gaza and escalation of arrests and killings in the West Bank,
in the wake of deadly floods and storms extreme, you read his words, no poetry after Auschwitz. Where can nightmares birth a seed of hope, a peaceful dream? No poetry after Gaza, where children die in blitz after blitz.
His words you read, no poetry after Auschwitz. In quiet fields, fallen fruit fertilize next year's food. No poetry after Gaza, where children die in blitz after blitz. And yet poetry may quell unquenching thirst for blood.
In fallow fields, fallen fruit fertilizes next year's food, where now and then a spade unearths an old arrowhead. May poetry quell unquenchable thirst for blood. Thousands dead by bullet or flood, all rest in starlit beds.
Yes, we all rest and live and die under starlight somewhere. The resolution passed. After hours of public comment, hours of listening to our friends and neighbors plead for our counselors to recognize their humanity, hours of Muslim and Christian and Jewish residents auditioning for our civic leaders' support, it passed by a 9-2 vote, 1 abstention. One tiny drop in the tidal wave.
Notwithstanding the Genocide Convention's recognition of the need to rid the world of the odious scourge of genocide, the international community
continues to fail the Palestinian people, despite the overt dehumanizing genocidal rhetoric by Israeli governmental and military officials, matched by the Israeli army's actions on the ground, despite the horror of the genocide against the Palestinian people being live streamed from Gaza to our mobile phones, computers, and television screens. The first genocide in history where its victims are broadcasting their own destruction in real time, and the desperate, so far vain hope that the world might do something. Gaza represents nothing short of a moral failure, as described by the usually circumspect International Committee of the Red Cross. As underscored by United Nations chiefs, that failure has repercussions not just for the people of Gaza, but for the generations to come who will never forget these over 90 days of hell and of assaults on the most basic precepts of humanity. The world should be absolutely horrified. The world should be absolutely outraged. There is no safe space in Gaza, and the world should be ashamed.
I've been struggling to be present with this suffering and devastation. Thich Nhat Hanh touching the earth meditation has helped me cope. Will you join me? Join me. Join me. All of you join me as we do this practice. I invite you to simply touch the ground with your hands. And if you cannot, bend or bow towards the earth. We touch the earth 5 times. Bow each time. Bow for each line that I read. In gratitude, I bow to all generations of ancestors in my bloodline. In gratitude, I bow to all generations of ancestors in my spiritual family. In gratitude, I bow to this land and all the ancestors who made it available. In gratitude and compassion, I bow and transmit my energy to those I love. In understanding and compassion, I bow to reconcile with the people who have made me suffer. Now that's what freedom feels like.
Write My Name by Zaina Azam. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Use the black permanent marker with the ink that doesn't bleed. If it gets wet, the one that doesn't melt if it's exposed to heat.
Write my name on my leg, Mama. Make the lines thick and clear. Add your special flourishes so I can take comfort in seeing my mama's handwriting when I go to sleep.
Write my name on my leg, Mama, and on the legs of my sisters and brothers. This way we will belong together. This way we will be known as your children.
Write my name on my leg, Mama. And please write your name and Baba's name on your legs, too, so we will be remembered as a family.
Write my name on my leg, Mama. Don't add any numbers, like when I was born or the address of our home. I don't want the world to list me as a number. I have a name, and I am not a number.
Write my name on my leg, Mama. When the bomb hits our house, when the walls crush our skulls and bones, our legs will tell our story. How there was nowhere for us to run.
There was nowhere for us to run. Nowhere. We sprout wings from stumps of broken limbs and fly. Shred the sky with our piercing cries. Dream of olive trees bursting into flames bright as moon's edge of a solar eclipse. Starbursts wide open. We dive through the portal.
Da 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 da. Die, 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 die. Die, da, die, da, da, da. Holy, holy are you, Lord, God Almighty. Holy, holy are you, El Shaddai. Holy, holy are you, Adonai Elohim, my love and peace. Lord, I give my heart to you. Lord, I give my all to you. Da 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 da. Die, 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 die. Die, da, 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 da. Whenever I am despaired, you shine your amazing light. Da, 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 da. Whenever I am falling, you reach out and you grab me. Holy, holy are you, my God. Faithful are you, my Lord. Da 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 da. Die, 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 die. Die, da, 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 da. Some they say we have no soul, El Shaddai. Da, 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 da. Blitz after blitz, they exterminate like you've disowned us. Da, 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 da. Write your name upon our souls, Adonai, so that when death comes for us, it will know that we are yours. The people Palestine, they are yours. Even Gaza belongs to you. Da 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 da. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die.